Good morning, and welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways, Coyote in the Highlands. This is take number 5. I've had some camera issues and all sorts of weird stuff, and I'm having a hard time getting my thoughts together. So this is going to be interesting. Let's see if this one works. It's a chilly morning in the Highlands, about 46 degrees, which is a really nice break, a little bit of a chill snap here in the middle of spring. It's been 80, 90 degrees outside in the daytime, and this is just, it's always pleasant to have that little chill snap. Cold, but pleasant, you know? And of course, for much of my life, 46 degrees isn't even particularly cold, but now I'm out here and back to my desert adaptation. I'd like to talk a little bit about agriculture and evolution and civilization and human freedom. So agriculture was the biggest settlement to agriculture was the biggest thing that brought us slavery and disease and a lowered life expectancy and a whole bunch of crap, indoor crap, out of nature crap. It's, at the same time, it may or may not have been the only way to bring us high civilization, but it is what we've done. It's where we've gotten high civilization. It may not have been the only path, but it's the path that humanity seems to have embarked on. And we're almost to the point technologically where we can escape most of the negatives of settlement agriculture and get to the positives, like really stress the positives. There are positive aspects to it. But, you know, even though epigenetically we are very adaptable and you can express different methods of handling food, and most people can eat a lot of plants and do very well, it's not actually a core evolutionary diet, and it's not necessarily ideal. So the idea that our goal, our purpose in life, our one thing to do is to sit in the dirt and grow our own food doesn't hold water with me. I don't have a problem with gardening. I love gardening. I'm planting little cactus here and there and trying to make things pretty up here. I have grown my own food. I've grown my own food to the point where we didn't hardly go grocery shopping. I've done that in a suburban lot. I have foraged. I foraged in cities and I foraged in suburban areas. There's quite a lot of forage out there if you know what you're looking for. I do better eating largely ruminant diet. So that has led me to look and to research things. And what is it? Where is our evolutionary path coming from? You know, and it is largely nomadic hunters. Movement, outdoors, being with nature, all of that's a really big deal. But it doesn't come from farming, okay? That's, if your goal is to get out and get into nature, you don't necessarily have to look at things in terms of farming. Farms are incredibly valuable, especially for people who are well adapted to eating large amounts of plants. I'm not, and I don't know how much of the population really is. It's a question for later. But if a lot of people seem to conflate the idea of farming with being outdoors. Being outdoors is incredibly healthy for your mind, for your body, for your brain, and it helps you in your awareness ride in that body and that mind more effectively. Like, get out, get the de-stressing, get everything going on. Being outside, but possibly you might want to look at this in a more pastoral sense. You know, instead of being a dirt farmer, which is, and that's not necessarily a negative. Soil is the basis of farming. Soil health is the basis of any sustainable farming. Like, you should be able to smell it, taste it, dig it up, look at it, examine it, and it's a living thing. Soil is a living thing, not a living thing like a individual puppy, but a living thing in a broader, bigger, deeper sense. There's a whole series of ecosystems, micro-ecosystems, macro-ecosystems going on in soil. It's incredibly cool stuff. And tending the soil is fine, but dirt farming isn't necessarily the same as getting outdoors. I just want to put that out there and stress this for a moment, that there's nothing... I've seen a lot of people in the back to the land sustainability movements who are sort of programmed that the whole point, the whole thing you have to do is grow vegetables. That's what it is. It's about growing vegetables. And okay, for some people that's like a lot of fun, but it's not. It can rapidly trap you into working for the land and getting rid of your human aspirations, your soul aspirations, your transcendental aspirations, if it's not done right, if it's not in the right mode for you. And I'd like to suggest that getting outdoors, as necessary as it is, might be done in a more, traditional hunter-nomad fashion, but also a more pastoral fashion. You know, there's nothing wrong with walking around, picking up a little trash, cleaning up some sticks, pastoralizing your area, the forest around you, wherever you live, and just making that outdoor environment a little nicer. That is tending to the environment, and that's totally fine. You don't have to dig up rows and plant stuff and do hay cover and dig it up, and none of that is actually necessary. And I think that a lot of people who are trying to build homestead retreats and large green permaculture areas would do better to look less at the intensive farming and more at the, pastoral aspects, you know. If eating fruits and vegetables is really a big deal for you, maybe looking at things that are less managed, less intensively managed, isn't a bad idea. You know, we tend to over-horticulture, overdo some of our agriculture. You know, there's been experiments. There's a guy out who Anatolia, I think, who showed that just wild wheat, not domesticated wheat, wild wheat, with a stone scythe, in 2 weeks he could harvest by hand, one person, enough to feed a family for about 6 months. If you're a grain eater, that's totally awesome, but just realize that what that was not an intensive farming. It was just going out and collecting stuff, right? Now we have a large population on the planet, and we have systems set up, and we have lots of ownership issues and national boundaries and regulations, and there's a bunch of stuff that prevents everyone from just going out and playing hunter-gatherer whichever way they want. But we are also in a space where we can, if not just flat out fake it, which is what some people do, go for a walk in the Greenbelt Park in your city, we can manage and work towards a more pastoral, I'm just going to use the word pastoral existence. And I think that's really crucial and important to remember. Now, I think there's forces that are fighting tooth and nail against that. There are forces that don't want abundance, don't want to lose the control and the slavery and the hierarchy systems of settlement agriculture. What we got with cities, what we got with settlement agriculture was cities, slaves, hierarchies, and power structures, which allow certain people to program themselves or run programs, social programs, that they are better than, more powerful than, have to keep the other people in check, whatever. Stuff like that. It's all very antithetical to the notion of freedom and liberty, and that's pretty much where we need to work, is working on maximizing that. And that means, indeed, freeing people up to move around more, to walk around, to hike, to wander. You know, it's not an uncommon thing in a lot of human history, cultures, even settlement cultures, for people to go on a wander, to just go take off for a year and walk and wander, life experiences. You know, there's a lot of things that get into spiritual experiences, and that's one of the things to think about. So, this is a very difficult video to get a point across, to get a one-line summary. What is this video about? I have some friends who are involved in homesteading, group homesteads, agricultural-based concerns. And everything about being outdoors for them is based around this agriculture, grow your own food. You know, self-sufficiency becomes community interdependence, and that's fine too, but it's all based on this agriculture idea. Not nature itself, but agriculture. And I think it's just worth taking a little look, taking a shift, putting yourself into that hunter-barbarian mold, and looking at the world from that perspective. Looking at where we go, what we do. Regenerative ruminant animal agriculture is one of the big things to look at for sustainable food practices on planet Earth with a large population. You know, and even with a low population, doesn't matter. And that means basically, you know, cattle all over the place, buffalo all over the place, stuff like that, goats, sheep, ruminant animals, large herds, large pastures, much healthier ecosystems because you're not plowing and separating and managing and single cropping and all of that. Even with the guilds in permaculture, it tends, my views of it, my experience with it, tends to involve a lot more input and artificiality than I would really prefer. Although it's great, it's a fantastic step up in terms of terraforming from dirt farming. Nothing bad there, no shade. But look at things from that point of view of being able to wander large pieces of land that aren't just owned and fenced off. There's something to be said for that, especially in the right environment. This environment is an open range environment for cattle, but that's not actually quite working with the ecosystem. We need to either schedule the range or take some of it off, or have managed years, because this where I'm at, the 40 acres I'm on up here, definitely could use a couple years off from cattle. There's no young junipers, for example. There's a lot of the life cycle breakage there is about 150 years along, and there's some impact. You know, it would be nice to have part of this state come off of open range for 5 years at a time and kind of roll it through. I think we would do better. That's management, you know. But at the same time, I wish people were wandering around more. It's the current model, this is what I've got. This is where I'm at. But I kind of wish that there was more camping and hiking out here instead of just 40-acre privately owned lots. You know? I think we need to move towards that. I don't want people to live in crowded cities or smaller areas, but more pastoral, more out in nature. Our lives need to be more out in nature. And one of the ways to do that is to drop your farming focus. I don't mean don't grow your own food if that's important to you, but drop the farming focus if that's not an actual vocation, if that's just how you're getting out into nature. Look at it from other points of view. Give yourself the space. Give yourself permission to experience nature in a different way. And now, finally, 15 minutes in, we've got the one-liner. Give yourself permission to experience nature in a non-agricultural fashion. Okay? Stay sideways.